Northwest Public Radio, KRFA 91.6.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, December the 19th. This is the last council meeting of fiscal year 2016. Not that it will be our last meeting, of course, but the last meeting for this year. So, with that, Gina?
Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gina. Now we will go on to the next thing, which is the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve the consent agenda as this. We'll start with the roll with John.
Aye.
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 And aye. Okay, then we will move on to item number 2. Staff recognition report. Jen Piffner. Jen?
We did have a staff recognition report this evening, but the person being recognized supervisor is out plowing snow. So to have everybody here so we can recognize him properly, we will do it at another time.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that the guys that are out there doing the snow are doing the snow, because it's one of those years that we're going to be dealing with snow this year. So there we have it. We are having a real winter. Okay, I'll move on to item number 3, which is mayoral appointments. And I've got a bunch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do them in groups, and then we'll get, I'll ask for a motion afterwards. So we'll start with fair and affordable housing. I've got Randy McCole, who term would expire 12/31 of 2017. 3 people on farmers market, Helinda Heath, Joanne Mineta, and Jeremy Ritter, and all of those expire on 12/31 of 2019. Historic Preservation Commission, I have 2, Nels Reese and Chris Sokol, expiration of 12/31/2019. Human Rights, I've got 2 different divisions. I got a high school non-voting, which is Ari Carter, which will expire 12/31 of 2017. And those are year-over-years for high school kids. And 2 other normal, regular commissioners on human rights, Kristen Hultner and Stephen Simmons, whose terms expire 12/31 in 2019. Moscow Arts Commission, I've got, it's kind of interesting, I've got several here. I'm going to break these into different ones too. Alexandra Teague, whose expiration is 12/31 of 2020. Josh Larson, who is a non-voting county seat, which would expire 12/31 in 2020. David Wilson, which is a voting county seat, which would expire 12/31 in 2020. Moscow Pathways, we've got Becky Chastain and Margaret Dibble, whose expiration date would be 12/31 of 2019. Parks and Rec, we've got 3 people, Mark Helene, Archibald Harner, Nancy Tribble, which would expire on 12/31 of 2019. Planning and Zoning, we have Wendy McClure, whose term would end at 12/31 of 2021. Sustainable Environment Commission, we have 3 folks on there, Stephen McGeehan, Frederick Pollard, and Tina Hilding, and they would expire on 12/31 of 2019. Transportation Department, we've got 2, or Transportation Commission, 2, Mary Dupree and Bob Sanders, expiration at 12/31 of 2021. Tree Commission, Mary Jo Hamilton, which would expire 12/31 of 2019. And Urban Renewal Agency, Brandy Sullivan, whose term would expire 12/31 of 2021. I would entertain a motion from somebody.
I would move acceptance of the slate of appointees.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Art and a second by Jim to approve all of these various commission attendees. I will start roll with Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay, very good. And I know we've got one commissioner. I think, would you please stand up, Wendy? So everybody can. This is Wendy. And this lady here, would you like to say a few words, Wendy? Because you wear many hats, and you're welcome to talk if you wish. You can, if you do, you come up to the podium.
Well, I'll be talking to you later about another date on historic
Okay, well, that's just fine. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we sure appreciate everything you do because you're on a number of
Thank you.
commissions.
I enjoy it, being neck deep and involved. And I want to say thank you publicly to Wes McDonald for coming to our planning and zoning, I guess it was last month, and doing an excellent presentation that really helped us with understanding multimodal transportation. So,
Thank you, Wendy. Oh, by the way, something I didn't mention tonight, it's sure nice having all 6 counselors here at the same time, so we're going to get in the habit of doing this in 2017. We'll see what kind of New Year's resolution these men and women will make, but it's a lot easier when we have a voice of all here with us, so that I do appreciate. Okay, item number 4 is public comment and mayoral's response period for 15 minutes. What we do is we let folks speak to us for 3 minutes at a time, as long as it is not on tonight's agenda or something in front of planning and zoning and or the Board of Adjustments. If you wish to speak, please come up and give us your name and your address. Come on up, sir.
I'm Greg Bailey. I live at 429 North Hayes Street. And I'm also the superintendent of Moscow School District. And since this is the last meeting of year 2016, I thought this would be a great time to say thank you. And let me tell you why I'm saying thank you. You know, as a public servant for our school, for our community, sometimes people forget to say thanks for the people that work with us and help us. Let's talk about some of the things that you've done for the Moscow School District. First off, the Moscow School District community playfields. The oversight by Bill Belknap, project manager, equipment purchasing and scheduling, Greg Morrison and Dwight Curtis, and the ongoing dialogue allowing us successful partnership. Moscow Middle School D Street pedestrian and bicyclist safety project. Kevin Lilly, Scott Bonranger, and Nate Sir. The ability to pool the resources from 3 different sources: the City of Moscow, the Moscow School District, and the grant from Idaho Transportation Department. The support and oversight from the engineering department and street department that helped us out a lot. We want to thank you. I will tell you, our principal says it was night and day, the safety of our kids. Other actions: the ongoing playground co-op from Euler Field, Lena Whitmore, and West Park. The school district construction project that took 15 months rather than 4 months. But I will say, our city building inspectors, Micah Chappell and Justin Goodwin, even came on Sundays to inspect to keep the process going. Public Works, Les McDonald, the sharing of equipment on occasions with our school district, helping our taxpayers reduce costs. Maintaining streets for the safety of our students, the crosswalks, busing, and the snow removal. Police Department, James Fry, David Duke, providing a school resource officer for the first time for a few years. Shane Gunderson's doing a fantastic job. Thank you. Support during our homecoming parade, as well as security and support when needed. Ambulance and Fire Department, Brian Nicholson, Joe Williams. Debbie Carscallen's worked for donations of AEDs in all of our buildings now. For an old guy like me, that's really appreciative. The bearbulance, is that how you say it? The ambulance with all the Moscow Bears, they called it bearbulance or something like that. We appreciate that recognition. Providing support when needed, when we call. All the staff that read to our students on Dr. Seuss's birthday, we appreciate that. We appreciate you talking with our students about leadership. We also like the ambulance crews that escort our teams out of the city on their way to state. That means a lot to us. And the leadership within the City Hall. Gary Reiner, Jen, Bill Lambert, and Art, Gina, Jim, Walter, and Catherine. Thank you for once again talking to our students. A lot of times whenever you get a chance, reading to them, it helps provide the leadership to support the cooperative working with our school district, allowing a working relationship that is enjoyable and fun, and works with the school district leadership within the state political arena to provide a united front to help each other. All this, I just want to say thank you. Okay, appreciate it. No complaints, nothing, just thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Bailey. We appreciate the collaboration and work that we get a chance to work with the school district, and we feel very much the same way about them. So it's an ongoing work effort, and I've said this many times, our community is small enough. We're small potatoes, but we're big potatoes in our own right here. And so how we get a lot of things done is working together through collaboration, whether it's the Moscow School District or the University of Idaho or county commissioners, Chamber of Commerce. It goes on, and that is something that I love to do and I like to see. And one of the things I personally like to do on talking to leadership classes and reading to kids in the grade schools is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I love doing that. And kids will ask you some of the most interesting questions, especially first and second graders. And so it is really a hoot to do that. Anybody want to have some comments about Dr. Bailey here? We appreciate the thanks that you've given us.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate it. So,
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any others move along, so we will move on to item number 5, which is Citizen Commission Report, Historic Preservation Commission, Michael Ray. Mike, you have the podium, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. I'm here tonight to introduce Wendy McClure, who's the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. She also happens to be the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, so she wears a couple hats and dedicates a whole lot of time for pretty much the betterment of our community. So we spend a whole lot of time together, and it's really a pleasure.
Fortunately, it's really wonderful spending time with Mike. He's a great support for both commissions, and also Catherine, who's been our council liaison for both commissions this year. So thank you both for that. So this is our annual report, and you're going to have to tell me which way I go forward here. That one does? Okay. It seems like we're okay. Every year we do a goal-setting session, and one of our goals last year was to recruit new membership. And we do have two new members, Kate Geiger and Taylor Rainey, and it helps to sort of create diversity across the commission, because we had a lot of people who had been on it a long time. Now we have people who have been on it a long time, people who have been on it a moderate amount of time, and new people. So it's a nice balance, I think, that way. So we still have one opening, so if you know of anyone who's interested, we'd welcome having them join us. And then with that, we have ongoing initiatives every year. We create the Preservation Moscow newsletter. It comes out once a year. It takes probably 12 meetings to figure out what the content's going to be and who's going to do it and what we're going to talk about. This year we focused on Main Street and its history, and hopefully we don't have many copies left this year. It was popular. So we have a few back issues from other years if you're interested in looking at them. We also introduced, we typically give Orchid Awards, which honor, it's part of a national program, Orchids and Onions. We don't give onions, we only stay positive, but we recognize restoration efforts of various building owners throughout the community. and also people who have contributed to preservation in one way or another. This year we decided to make it an event, and the mayor came. It was our own event, October 6th. We made an evening out of it. Instead of tagging on to the Latah County Historical Society Ice Cream Social, we made it our own event, and we recognized multiple owners, one being Book People, and the changes, the restoration efforts they made to their storefront, and Matt Becker on his sort of heroic efforts of transforming Martin's Tires. I think Wayne has been really interested in watching that transform over the years. And Marianne Reese with her front porch restoration. And I'm sorry, I can't read it from here, but it's a couple from Britain that raised up their, I can't see their name from, yeah, thank you. And also, Merritt and Allie Decker, thank you. It's right here in front of me, and I just didn't realize that right now. You have the screen here, so sorry about that. And then one of the more unusual projects this year is two teachers from Palouse Prairie School came to us asking us if we would work with their first and second graders to understand the history of downtown. And we thought that was pretty ambitious for first and second graders, but one very cold January day last year, Nels and I met with them here in City Hall and then took first and second graders on tours of Main Street. And then the teachers took it from there and had the children, students do drawings of each building. So, and that's just a sample of some. But in this case, it was we presented the award to both the teachers and the classes for their efforts in preservation education. So that was kind of a special time. We conduct annual walking tours, really whenever, sometimes from the farmers market and other associated with other community events of campus and downtown, and sometimes Fort Russell. I think that Nels Reese took the mayor on an extended tour of all three, right?
He did.
Yeah, okay. So you've got it covered then. And that's just an example of some tours of the past. An ongoing project that's probably multi-year by now. We hired consultants. It's already been through City Council to expand the Fort Russell Historic District. The process there, as it was approved at the City Council level, went on to the State Historic Preservation Office and the State Historic Sites Review Board. They approved it with one condition, which they only meet once a year now, so it was a real slow process to hear back from them. But we just found out in September that they want us to count accessory structures and determine whether they're contributing or non-contributing. So that's a little bit of a hang-up. We have to do that. I'm qualified to do that, so I'm just doing it rather than trying to go for a grant and get a consultant hired and pay for it. So I'm just going to go around and look at when the weather improves. It's been a little cold the last week or two, and just do a count for them, and hopefully we can push it along and get it all the way to the feds by next spring. It's a new condition. The board, it isn't even approved yet, but it's coming down at the state level, and so the state office told us we had to do it. So there's not really a way of getting around it. We were sort of caught, unfortunately, midstream because our consultants weren't aware this would be a requirement coming down when they started the project. So it's just one thing we have to do. But otherwise, that one is, I think, going to make a lot more sense when the boundaries are better defined, and there's a nice expansion to the district. And so those are ongoing projects. And then one of our new initiatives is looking at interpretive signage for the public buildings on 3rd Street is where we'd like to start. And so we're just in research and development right now, looking at different types of interpretive signs that you can see from the sidewalk as a pedestrian and read about the history of the building with some historic photographs probably on it. And our candidates are the 1912 building, City Hall, of course, and the library, which isn't quite on 3rd Street, and then eventually probably the church as well, so the Methodist Church. And we hope to do, I think we probably have a budget to maybe do one a year, and that's what we're looking at. So it's a long-term initiative. But, and other initiatives, we have to get through Fort Russell first, but looking at other historic districts, one including campus, in the core of campus. But our initial survey for the Fort Russell district went all the way to 6th Street, and there's a lot of potential across 6th Street and the 7th Street and over to the Troy Highway neighborhood. And so looking at other possible historic districts, I know also there's interest in the original faculty development by the Arboretum as well, that neighborhood. So those are possible future ones, probably multi-year projects once again. And like I said, the core of campus would be another one. So, any questions? Or?
Wendy, that was the meeting we had in October, the presentation with all the various folks up at the 1912. That was such a fun evening. Catherine was there as well. That's just a neat thing that what you folks do on that. And I sure appreciate the fact that you're the chair of that commission. I'm going to talk about P&Z for you here in a second, but I'm going to let Catherine talk.
It's just the amount of time, because it being at the meeting, she wouldn't tell you how many structures that she has to take photographs of, but isn't it like...
Well, they aren't making... They struck a compromise.
But originally...
so that we don't have to photograph them, but we have to... partly because you have to get permission, because accessory structures aren't a lot of times visible from the street,
right.
And so you can't photograph them. But mostly just trying to get a glimpse of them and determine if they support the history of the building that is actually the main structure on the site, and making an assessment one way or another, and then getting a total head count of how many there are.
But mostly I was just trying to say that she puts in a lot of hours. Originally she thought the count was 250 structures. Isn't that what you said originally? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she's putting a lot of time in. Yeah.
Walter.
So, Wendy, what if the accessory structure was built last year? What does that do to the property?
It just means that the accessory structure is non-contributing to the property's listing.
Just needs to be documented?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll figure out how many are contributing.
They don't have to tear it down.
Well, no. In some cases, it's the opposite. The house may be non-contributing. It may be a new house, but there might be a garage or something that was historic, and that has to be counted as well. And that would be counted as contributing. So it may not be an even match all the way through. Yeah. So. Okay.
Other comments from Wendy? Oh, Wendy, you made one comment about you got old members and moderate members and new members. Well, you're going to get a few new ones on P&Z coming up in January too.
Okay.
So you got a couple more.
So we have the same spread there.
Yep, same kind of a thing there. So you're used to that. So thank you for all the work you've done on that commission. Pass my regards on to everybody on the Historic Preservation Commission.
I will. It's a fun commission.
Oh, yeah.
It's energetic.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6 now, which is the Live at 25 National Law Enforcement Curriculum. Chief Fry is going to do our presentation here for us. Chief, how you doing tonight?
Good, Mayor. How are you?
Good.
Council, thank you for letting us come. Tonight I actually brought some people with me to sell the importance of these programs that you're about to hear about. The Live at 25 we've been a part of since 2012. We were at the forefront of all that throughout the state, and we're one of the lead agencies that continues to push this program out, and it really does help the young drivers understand some of the hazards that are out there. So at this time I'd like to have Officer Sieverdeen come up. He's one of our instructors, and they meet monthly with individuals, and they push the curriculum out and help them become better, safer drivers.
Hello all, I'm Officer Sieverding. Like Chief Fry said, I'm one of the instructors. Alive at 25, the age group we focus on is 15 to 24-year-olds. That age group of people, the teens and young adults, are more likely than any other age group to be involved in crashes, vehicle crashes, including injuries and death. This age group in the country makes up 14% of all drivers, yet they cause 27% of all crashes. So that's almost double the crashes that they make up for. Every year, almost 11,000 people in that age group died in vehicle crashes, and it's currently the #1 killer of people in that age group. And of those young adults and teens in Idaho, 31% were not wearing seat belts in the deaths. So some of the things we focus on at Alive at 25, and the main reasons for these accidents are speeding, impaired driving, cell phone use is a big one, other distractions in and outside of the vehicle, inexperience, lack of awareness, risk-taking, too many people in the vehicle, and then failing to buckle up. So what Alive at 25 is, it's a 4.5-hour free class that we offer at the police department monthly. We have 2 instructors that teach each class. We have 4 instructors total at the police department. It was developed by the National Safety Council. We encourage MPD officers while they're on the street performing their duties, including responding to crashes and citing violators. We encourage them to speak with the violator, whether it be an infraction or a misdemeanor. On the actual citation, we have come up with a sticker that goes on the back of their citation, and it basically outlines what they need to do to sign up for Alive at 25. And part of that is contacting Erin Tomlin at her office, and she'll talk about more of that in a minute. Also, it's not only the kids that have citations or get into crashes. Parents can sign kids up, or they can come and take it to have reductions on insurance. This year, we were at Moscow's 2016 National Night Out to showcase the Alive at 25 program. So getting back to what we talk about, we focus on the behaviors and decision-making young drivers and passengers display behind the wheel. In the courses, parents are not allowed. It's a very intimate setting with the kids. We sit down and talk about why they're there, some of the decisions in the past. We talk about mistakes as officers that we've made when we were that age. I'm sure we've all had citations. We've all gotten into crashes. So we're not there to pick on them. We're there to talk about better habits as drivers. So this last fiscal year, we taught 11 classes, increasing it from in 2015 we had 70 graduates. The 2015, the year before, and then this year we're looking at 132 graduates. So it's increased in number. We're being more proactive. The word's getting out on the class. More officers are handing out the stickers, and more people are going to Erin to get into the class. So it's a growing program. At the end of the course, we ask each of the students to make a commitment to positive choices when they drive. So they say, hey, I'm going to make a commitment today to not text while I'm behind the wheel. I'm going to make a commitment not to speed, drive drunk, give myself more time in weather conditions like this. This program's very rewarding, not only as an instructor, but I believe for the city of Moscow. It's proven to save lives and reduce crashes, and it's a great opportunity for officers to interact with teens and young adults in a positive manner, which we always don't get to do. And I believe it embodies the community policing model. So I'll now have, if Erin could come up and kind of talk about.
Officer Sieverding, before
Yes.
you turn it over to Erin, I got a
Yes.
question to ask you. I want to make sure I got this correct. If I'm not mistaken, you said something about 31% of these kids between 16 and 30 or 25, 31% do not wear seatbelts. Is that correct? Is that
Well,
what you said?
What that statistic is of those Idaho young adults and drivers or passengers killed, only 31% of them were wearing their seatbelts.
So 69 were not.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a huge.
Man,
that's something we really focus on and drill into these kids. Is you got to wear your
that's a
seatbelt.
stunning. For me, that's a stunning thing. I mean, I just would have never thought in God's green earth it would have been that big of a percentage. Wow. So.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I sure appreciate the work you guys are doing on this. So, anybody have a question for Officer Sieverding before we turn it over to Erin? Kathy?
With the driver's ed program, do you all, is there any kind of dovetailing that works with the driver's ed teaching that happens?
Right. So at this point, so driver's ed, when they're young, they're 14, 15, they do driver's ed, get their driver's license, and then it's after that they can come take the class, whether they sign up, they can sign up to have the insurance reduction, or their parents can sign them up, or they receive the citation. Yes.
Well, really what I was asking is, do you give the information to the driver's ed instructor to pass along to the students?
We haven't, and that's a great idea that I'm aware of. But yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, officer. Hello, Aaron.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you for having me. I am just going to follow up a little bit on what Chief Fry and Officer Sieverding were talking to you about.
Now, Aaron, before you get going too far, why don't you tell our audience, because we're on TV, just exactly who you are and what you're doing, what your job function is, so that everybody will know you. Like we all know you up here, but let's let everybody else know what you do.
Sounds good. So I'm Erin Tomlin, and I'm the city prosecutor here in Moscow. So I work in the legal department, and a primary function of my job is to prosecute misdemeanors, infractions, and things like that. So I've been really involved in the Alive at 25 program in that capacity. And a little bit about it, in 2012 it had started. It's my understanding that Sergeant Lindquist was really pivotal in that, and Rod was still the city prosecutor at that time. And so the classes were beginning, and they were fairly sporadic, and they didn't get filled up quite as fast. And word started getting out, and so since 2012 we've seen it grow to the point where we now need to use the stickers just to kind of keep the process going smoothly. We have a full class. We have a wait list every month. When I think in 2013 when I started, I would just kind of get a list growing of kids at the courthouse who wanted to take it for one reason or the other, and then we would try to get enough to have a class. So we've really completely flipped on that, which is great. One of the reasons that I'm here tonight is to talk a little bit about the feedback that I get. I often get the benefit of being the Monday morning quarterback when citations are written, and in this capacity of Alive at 25, it's been a really rewarding way to look back on the situation, because the students and the kids that are going into Alive at 25 often are very young drivers or young adults. Many of them have never had an infraction before. Some of them have, but not here, or didn't have an opportunity to take a safety class like this, so we'll allow them to take it. And they come back to court after they've taken the class, and I get such positive feedback. And there's a lot of programs at the courthouse where people get to go to a class and then give me feedback on how it worked, whether it's in terms of driving or substance abuse and other things. And the most positive feedback that I get is about this class and those kind of intervention programs. The parents who have young children driving, the high schoolers, they, like Officer Sieverding said, they don't get to go to the class, but I think that these kids are going home and telling their parents all the things that they're learning, and the parents are making these observations and then take time out of their day to come to court or to call here and let me know how productive this class was. So some of the things I really like about it is that we are we're having some intervention, we're having some safety planning, we're also having some really positive interactions between young people and law enforcement. We're also having some really positive interactions between young people and their families with the court system, and I think that that's wonderful. I think that the stickers, which were initiated by the Moscow Police Department, was a brilliant idea, because we, as you saw the numbers, we've almost doubled our attendees in the last year, and so it got to be a little bit bogged down with phone calls of people saying, can I take the class? I heard about the class. Or the court clerks would have people come in with an infraction or a low-level driving misdemeanor, and they would be like, should I send them to the class, Aaron? And so we were just kind of playing phone tag with literally over almost 100, I think it was 132 kids this last year. And by kids, I mean people from the ages of 14 to 24.
I consider them
I just
kids.
had to clarify that. Yeah, I'm like, they're not all really kids. So the sticker was just brilliant, because it allows the officers to make that initial referral right there on the street, because they're the ones running the driver's checks. And so as soon as I see a citation with that sticker on the back, I know that we've already gotten through step one. I don't have to try to contact the officer and worry about different shifts that we're working. So I get that sticker, I see it on the back, and I can instantly let the court know that if that sticker's there, we can have a process that makes it really efficient. We can set that court date out to allow them time to take the class, give them a continuance. They come back, they show proof that they've taken the class, and then we can work with them in the best way that's appropriate for that situation. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of how it's grown. I'm really proud that other agencies have called and asked, how can we implement this in our own jurisdiction? I've gotten some phone calls like that, and we have seen our classes grow, I think in part because of that. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Walter.
So the sticker's purpose is to tell you that an officer's had a conversation with this person about the Alive at 25 class.
That is one of the purposes. If I see the sticker, then I know that they've already cleared a background check in some respects, if you will, or that the officer thought they were really cooperative or they would benefit from it. And so as soon as I see that, I don't have to worry about that threshold. The other purpose that it serves was that the court clerks were starting to see that we were using this class quite a bit. And so then they would see young people come in to pay a ticket or say, this is my first speeding ticket I've ever gotten, I don't know. And then the court clerks would be like, gosh, Erin, can they take the class? And so I was getting calls from them as well. So now it just became this symbol to everyone involved, including myself, that once this sticker was on there, it kind of took the guesswork out, which was great because that was inefficient without it. And so, yes, but also it helps other people too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mary. I think that's fantastic.
Yep, thank you.
What we're doing with that. Awesome.
So that's all we have tonight on that topic. As you can see, I'm very proud of the instructors that we have, and they come out and they put their time in and they put effort into educating. That's really what this is about. It's a learning process. So.
Well, the good thing about it, Chief, is it's an education process for all of us, and it's so terrific that we're doing these type of things in our community. I think that is a big deal for all of us. So with that, I guess we need to have a motion to approve the Moscow Police Department to participate in the Alive. John?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the Moscow Police Department to participate in the Alive at 25 law enforcement curriculum program for the fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by John and a second by Gina to approve the Moscow Police Department to participate in the Alive at 25 law enforcement curriculum program for fiscal year 2017. I'll start to roll with Walter.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Officer Silverding and Aaron, for all the work that, and everybody else, Chief, that's in the department that works with us. This is absolutely awesome. Okay, now we're going to move on. This is kind of
Chief, you've got one other officer. Would you be so kind as to have him come up and introduce
John,
himself?
if you just wait, he's going to be on the next thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he will be
We got
presenting that.
cops all over
John
tonight.
John, well, we're going to move on to item number 7, which is 2017 Idaho Child Passenger Safety Grant, and Chief Fry's going to do that again, so I think we're probably going to hear this guy speak to it.
Officer Ellen Wood is one of our instructors on this. He's taken over for Officer Marie Miller, who has kind of spearheaded this program since 2011. And this program, I believe that both of these programs are actually saving lives, and we just don't even get to know about it because we're dealing with young kids up through their mid-20s driving, and we're dealing with child safety seats. And everybody thinks we can just throw child safety seat in a car and it's good to go. But we send officers to a 40-hour training to learn how to put these in properly so that we can keep our young kids safe and stuff. And Officer Ellenwood's going to give you a brief run on that, but he's also going to talk to you about a new program that we started this year that 2 of our instructors went to, and it's kind of exciting for us because it adds another element to this program. So, Officer Ellenwood.
Good evening. As I begin to talk to you, to clear up any confusion, I'm not originally from Idaho, if you didn't notice. Want to get that elephant out of the room. And I recently moved to Idaho and started work with the police department here in Moscow about 18 months ago. And they
I
came
can, I
from
can
a
understand him just fine. I don't know about y'all.
You got a couple of folks up here that are non-natives from here as well, so you're
Very
fitting
good.
in just fine.
I moved from a department in North Carolina that was very proactive in child passenger safety seats. And I was very pleased to know when I got to Moscow that this is a tradition here as well. Just a little bit of my background, I've been in public safety service for about 23 years. And any time that I've experienced death in my job or many coworkers, it's most difficult when it involves children. And one element I believe that is because children can't take care of themselves. They rely on caretakers. This program is designed to educate the caregivers of children. And it's very valuable educational material that we give them. Some people look at this program as just a way for people to obtain free car seats. And that's basically at the bottom of the priority list. It's education to these parents and these caregivers. So there's great passion in this program, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm hoping you have some statistics in front of you for the grant, and if not, I'd be glad to read some of those. Just between 2015 and 2016, statistically, there's been a huge increase in the number of families that have been reached by this program. Not only the number of families served, but the number of seats that we have been able to provide to these families. There's a great networking that goes on. This is just not Moscow Police Department. Right now there are 16 other agencies and businesses that we collaborate with to make this program happen. We just happen to be at the forefront. We do a lot of the hosting of the classes. We apply for the grant that funds this program. But it's amazing to me to see, even on the private sector, the number of people that have shown interest in this program. Just to give you an example, I don't know if you're familiar with Palouse Care Network. Happens to be where my wife currently is working, and they have just applied for a grant. They are an agency that deals with crisis pregnancies, and they help families in the birth of their children and parenting classes. They're going to send one of their employees to become a technician. That benefits the city of Moscow and the police department in a tremendous way, that they will be able to fit these car seats themselves. I think word of mouth advertising is huge. I think that's why it's gaining momentum. The more families we serve, the more they realize how beneficial the program is, the more they tell their neighbors, families, and friends. The program that's new and exciting that Chief Fry just mentioned, about 3 weeks ago our department hosted, and again we hosted it, but there was approximately 15 students in this class from basically all over northern Idaho and eastern Washington on the application of child safety seats for children with special needs. And it was absolutely enlightening to see the technology that's available that families don't know about, and even as technicians that we weren't even aware of that were there. The beautiful part of that class was it was a 2-day class that we hosted here in Moscow. We were able to bring in 5 families from the Moscow area that had children with special needs. Every one of those families came in with drastic misuse of car seats, some none, and it's because there was nothing available to them. We had representation from the Department of Transportation in Idaho, and they actually funded new car seats, some of them custom made, in excess of $1,000 a seat. That didn't come out of Moscow's budget, that came out of the state budget to provide to these families. It was a beautiful thing to see these families be able to drive away knowing that their children were safer than when they came. I could speak on and on and on. Maybe you have some questions. Again, if you want some statistics, maybe I could provide those to you.
Well, first off, Officer, we're all very, very proud of what all the officers have been doing in this program, and it continues to grow, and it's very evident that it's very, very worthwhile, and it's a big thing for us. John Weber, I'm going to give you a shot to talk to this guy because you were anxious to speak to.
Well,
other
I just
officers, so
wanted to make sure that when we do get officers that may be on duty, I don't know whether you are on duty right now, but you came down here and you're getting involved in things that are normally not what people would consider police activity, and you're really doing a public service to the community, to yourselves, and to your police department. I think you're to be thanked and applauded, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to mention something, too, about numbers. And in 2015, there was a total of 238 of these seats checked, and in 2016, 472. That is a huge amount. And as you know, and you talked about other law enforcement agency, I know when we do the safety fair, we also have our Latah County deputies as well as the state patrol very involved, as well as our fire department. So it's a big deal. We got a number of different agencies involved in this. Other questions for the officer?
I have a question. Mine has to do with, because on one of the deliverables on page 63, it talks about trying to reach out to low-income families. Have you gone through the school system?
I don't know a lot of the history of the program, so I don't want to misspeak.
Mm-hmm.
Again, word of mouth is the main thing. I don't know if there's been direct invitation to the school system to advertise about the program. Certainly something that we can look into. Obviously, we have a lot of children that are being transported to and from the elementary schools in these type seats.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the proposed grant application and accept the anticipated award of $13,800 from the Idaho Transportation Department, the Office of Highway Safety.
Second?
Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Catherine to approve the general grant application and accept the anticipated award of $13,800 from the Idaho Transportation Department, Office of Highway Safety. I'll start to roll with John.
Aye.
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 And I.
There you go, officer. Thank you very much for all the hard work and everything you do. And I know that Marie was not able to be here. Officer Miller, please give her my gratitude because she's been very, very involved in the safety fair that always goes on in June. And I love attending that. It's just amazing to me. The chief's there. We got lots of officers, and it's a fun day. God, there's thousands of people that come up and show up for that thing, so it's really a big deal for us. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure Chief Fry wants to close. Thank you for your part.
We do want to thank you for your support. You've always supported us in these endeavors, but like we've talked about, these really do make a difference in our community. They keep our children safe. They keep our community safe. And we are very proud to be at the forefront of pushing these programs out, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I want to make a mention here, too, because on our Public Works and Finance meeting of December 12th, and this was something that Walter Steed had brought up about being able to bring this on the regular agenda and not put it on the consent agenda. And I think that was a big deal because you men and women need to get the recognition out there in the public of the great job and work you've done. And so it's neat to be able to see this. It was neat to get Erin here because she never gets a chance to address us, and so a lot of the public really doesn't know who Erin is, and we're all very proud of the hard work that she does. So it's a collaborative work within your team there, and that's a big deal for us. So thank you, Walter, for
You're welcome, Mayor. The idea was to make the public more aware of these programs and let them know that if they'd like to take advantage of it, or if they'd like to turn around to the teenager on the couch and say, "Why haven't you mentioned this to me?" They now know about it. So
absolutely. Thank you, fellas. Okay, we'll move on to the next thing, which is item number 8, 2017 City Limits Ordinance. By Les McDonald. Hi, Les. How are you this evening?
I am well this evening, thank you. This is the item we have all been waiting for.
Are we going to make you read the whole legal description?
Well, I was just contemplating that.
We're going to save that for the mayor.
The mayor will say everything from east to west, north to south, from 1 to a zillion. This is ordinance. How's that sound?
That works. So before you this evening, we have our annual endeavor to define the corporate limits of the city of Moscow. This is something that's required of the municipalities of the state through state statute. In many years, such as the last two, we are typically acknowledging that there's not been a change in the corporate boundaries from previous years. That is not the case this year. We have actually two changes that have occurred. So within the legal description that is in this document, we provide the description of the new boundaries. So here's the city of Moscow map, and this kind of dash line that you see running around here is the corporate city limits as previously defined and adopted by the city. But we did have two annexations occur this year. One is the Shireman annexation, which is the old Slurp and Burp site property on the Robinson Park Road area, east side of town, early in the year. And then later in the year, we had the Logos property annexation here. This was formerly trail property that now belongs to the Logos School and is anticipated to be their future high school site or school site. So that came a little bit later in the course of the year. So with those two annexations that came through City Council for passage, we now have new boundaries that have to go around the exterior of those hatched-in areas to create our new corporate limit. So in your packet this evening is an ordinance in draft form that has a 6.5-page long legal description that I will not offer to read to you. But it is intended to list out and describe that new corporate boundary with those two annexations. Also in your packet is a copy of the 2013 ordinance, which was the last time we had an annexation and a new boundary defined, the one we've been using since 2013. But with that, I would try to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Les?
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Walter?
Les, I just noticed this. What is that right there?
That is a 20-foot wide sliver of land that used to belong to the Montgomery family, who had property located right up in here.
I've never met this man before. I've never told him this question was coming, and he's got the exact answer of it, actually what it is and who owned it, I guess.
Yes, and that was like I say, a 20-foot wide piece of property belonged to the Montgomerys to serve their property to the north. A few years back, the University of Idaho acquired that piece of land from the Montgomerys, and the driveway was no longer needed as we could serve their residents and their property off of the end of A Street right there. So it's still somewhat of a bit of a legacy in that the Montgomery piece in its entirety was never incorporated into the city, never brought into the city limits. So the ownership has changed, but the corporate boundary has not changed, as there's not been any action to annex that little sliver of property up in that part of town.
It's an old road?
It was a driveway.
Driveway.
Yeah. So it's right next to the U-Haul, between the U-Haul and the mall.
Yeah.
That driveway that runs up the hill, that was their access driveway.
That's what you're talking about.
They're now served off to the end of A Street, and the university acquired that. It's actually the site where we are going to be installing a new 16-inch water line running from A Street down the hill towards Well 9 later this spring. So that's part of the system that's out there. But yeah, that is why that is there. And someday when properties there on the northwest corner decide they want to come into the city, I suspect it will be the time we will bring that one in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Les? It's pretty straightforward.
That's pretty straightforward.
John?
I would make a motion that we approve the attached ordinance establishing the new legal description for the city of Moscow corporate limits under suspension of the rules requiring 3 full and complete readings, and have it be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by John and a second by Jim to approve the attached ordinance establishing the new legal description of the City of Moscow corporate limits under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 full and complete readings, and it to be read by title and published by summary. I will start to roll with Walter.
Question, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
before I vote for Les. Are there now computer programs that can see if these descriptions close or do you still have to do them manually?
Well, typically, these descriptions can be plotted out in like an AutoCAD program with the bearing distance, and it will confirm, to a certain amount of accuracy that you have closure at the end. So yes, there are programs out there to do that.
Okay. Thank you. I'll vote aye.
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 Okay, and we have a new city limits boundary, ordinance 2016-16? 2016-16, is that correct? Okay, ordinance number 2016-16, an ordinance amending the ordinance of number 2013-01 of the city of Moscow, Idaho, establishing and declaring in this ordinance corporate limits of the city of Moscow, Latah County, Idaho, in accordance with the provisions of the laws of the state of Idaho relating to the establishment of the boundaries and the annexations of adjacent and continuous territory, providing for the repeal of any other ordinance or parts of the ordinances in conflict therewithin, providing a severance and savings clause, and for the effective date of this ordinance. And the descriptor is, like I said, page 1 through 10 of the attachment, and we will move forward. So
You're not going to read that?
I am not, John.
No, he's not going to read that.
You can take it home if you can't sleep and read it, and you will be asleep by paragraph 3. With that, that is the end of our meeting, folks, and I would entertain moving on to talk about committee meetings and different things. And Jim, Public Works and Finance met on December the 12th.
I was not on that, so but I think everything was covered.
No, there's one item that was not. I chaired that, Mr. Mayor. There was a lot line adjustment that was discussed that does not appear on agenda tonight.
Okay.
I presume we will see it in the future.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead. If you got anything else, we'll just go this way.
So everything else on the Public Works Finance was covered tonight, either in the consent or the other items on the agenda. The only other thing I had was the Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department Board meeting on December the 12th. Pretty much routine business. They brought 2 new people, one into the rescue company, one into the support company, and they are about halfway or 60% toward their fundraising goal for the current fiscal year. That's all I've got.
Okay. Moscow Pathways met on the 13th, and they are working with the university. David Schott's kind of heading this up, the pathway that goes through the university property. He found a UI study that had been done, and the company that had put in the lights for $215,000. They have the system and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, they're trying to put in more lights and help them replace it. They also talked about the Steiner and White underpass that goes under Lynn Street, and they're interested in the city match and all the work that's going into that. They think the bridge is not dead. And then the Blackbird Crossing Trail Station, David Schott presented on that. And he said it was modeled after the Pullman plan. We've seen Dwight come in, but he got to then share it with this committee. And there's the Kristen Armstrong Trail on Paradise Path. That's going to be happening. The university sent a letter to the commission about that. They want to thank you for the cookies that you sent. Also, they have Jonathan is going to still be their chair, and their vice chair is Margaret. And then they sat in this meeting and started on their 2017 goals coming up. So they have a lot of things that they're thinking about. Historic preservation was covered beautifully, of course, by Wendy and Mike. And they have a lot of work to do. And she was really being humble about how much work she has to do, taking all those photographs and figuring conforming and non-conforming. And then P&Z met. There were 3 people absent. One was apparently watching. I don't know about the other 2, but I like to mention the absentees just like we do here. And then there was a huge discussion from a letter about Dutch Brothers because of the traffic issue on 95. So they had a long conversation, and Mike educated them about the property and what they can and can't do. Transportation Commission then was looking into complete streets, and they had a conversation about the street lights and the LED lighting and how that's changing things and who can replace. They haven't. They canceled the December 28th meeting, and then the code use update was presented by Mike, and they went through it again, and it's just going to make it's so much easier to use any of the codes, and they've done a beautiful job, the city staff, putting together that to work. So that was really cool. And they had a street tree update for new subdivisions that they're starting to talk about that some more, and what the developers should be responsible for, and how to educate the new homeowners, and how to get a certificate of occupancy, and the steps for a review for that. And then they're looking, coming up at the 2009 comprehensive plan update, and that has not been updated in 5 years, and so they're going to start reading that together, going through chapters 1 and 2 and moving through that. And then they're also going to look at future shared readings about the comprehensive sewer, comprehensive water plan, and I brought out the things that we have in our file, so Mike's going to put together to help educate them on that. And then the bike share, Palouse, has a meeting in January, so that's coming along too. Oh, and 1912 met as well, and the facilities meeting, we had a facilities meeting, and we're looking at how much the bid was for the roof and if it was within the parameters for what was budgeted. Dwight said yes, that's the amount, so that looks like that'll happen and be presented coming forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Art? Not so much. Fair and Affordable Housing Commission canceled their most recent meeting. Sustainable Environment Commission meets tomorrow. And I'll leave the URA to John because I wasn't there.
Okay, I'll move on to Jim.
Let's see, the Transportation Commission met on the 8th of December, and they elected officers, which are the same officers as the previous year, so there was no change there. And Mr. McDonald made a presentation on the Complete Streets policy that he's been working on and has it pared down to something that's manageable, I think, and pretty much in cooperation with all the policies that are in place now. Most of what we do would address when we build a street, most of the things in the Complete Streets policy are already included, so it's kind of a validation of that. And I think he's done a great job of narrowing that down so it's a readable document, and that's good. And also made a presentation about the streetlights policy, because people ask why there's not a street light on a stretch of street that's maybe 2 or 3 blocks long, but it's straight and there's no intersections, and that's why, because streetlights are expensive, and we tend to put them where there's an intersection or an end of a street so people can see that it does end in a cul-de-sac, or there's an intersection, or there's some geographical oddity that would make it an obstacle for people. That's why things are lit that way. Let's see, Clearwater Resources Conservation Development Council met last Tuesday and had a good presentation from Robin Olgren, who's helping that organization with marketing plan and outreach and board development. So that's going to be a positive thing for development of resources that benefit communities in the 5-county area in some economic way. And the CEDA Finance and Operations Committee met mostly over the phone due to the weather last Thursday, and everything was going along pretty well there. There's over $1 million in funds to be loaned. If anybody is doing economic development and having trouble getting funds, CEDA does have over $1 million to loan. So, and that's all I have.
Gina.
Thank you. Okay, so I had 2 of my 3 commissions. The Arts Commission, believe it or not, is already starting to talk about Art Walk in June of 2017. We're already starting the planning. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. It gives me a little hope that we're going to make it to June with all this snow. We are also talking about public art in the library in that area there, kind of the southeast corner of the lot there at the library, kind of where the sign is. So there's lots of discussion about that. PKC did a lot of talking about the Be the Entrepreneur Boot Camp. I have asked repeatedly, in the spirit of measurable outcomes, for some measurable outcomes from the BTE, and we'll see. There's a lot of discussion about like the budget and the food and that sort of thing, and I'm kind of beating the same dead horse over and over again. We need some outcomes, so we'll see what happens. But other than that, I'm going to close the year out with no more meetings.
All right, John.
I've got a couple here. I got the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust. Probably the things that were most important was the fundraising status. Banner Bank came up with about $2,500. Vista donated of a washer and dryer, Energy Star rated, and this is for the house on Morton Street. And the budget status for that house was discussed. It's moving along quite well. And then we've got two possible future projects, one at the Dumas Seed plant, so we're proceeding with looking at that, and also Sunnyside Avenue at the south end of town, and we are looking in that. So the Moscow Affordable Housing is moving along. And then we had the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency had a meeting last week, and the biggest part of that was the 6th and Jackson turn lane frontage public right-of-way MOU and dedication between the Urban Renewal Agency, which owns that piece of property adjacent to 6th Street, where the street is going to be widened out and make a better turn lane and bring all of the bicycle paths so that they end at one side of 95 and start out on the other side of 95 in the same area. So that's moving along. And then we did go through the financials for the year, and I could spend as much time as Bill Belknap did explaining those, but you probably don't want to hear it. And then the tree committee had a meeting, and it was more than anything a continuation of some of the talks that we've had, or that they've had, and expanding on the possible tree replacement downtown, because we've got a number of trees that are starting to reach, if they haven't already, the end of their useful life. What kind of trees to put in, how tall, that kind of stuff. And other than that, you got me.
Okay. I only had a couple of things. On December 9th, had a meeting with the FAA over in Pullman and at the airport with Pullman Mayor Len Johnson, myself, Tony Bean, Paul Kimmel was there. We had 6 folks from the FAA, 2 of them from Washington, D.C., the head of that being Elliot Black. It was kind of an interesting conversation. Very supportive of our airport, and some of the things that we're trying to get the ISL landing and things, that's kind of up in the air yet. We don't know whether we will or will not get it. They're not putting these in airports any longer, but we had a pretty good argument, so we'll get a chance to see. We will know by mid-January whether we're going to get that or not, so we'll see that. And then on December 15th, I had an airport board meeting, and that was about it. Jen, do you have anything for us
I just have a quick update with the holidays coming. Typically, we'd have committee meetings on December 26th. Of course, City Hall will be closed that day, and so some of those meetings will be adjusted as needed, or however the council decides to move forward with those, the mayor and council. And so City Hall will be closed. Other offices will be closed. Of course, essential personnel, our public safety folks will be out and about too, though. But.
Our street people are doing a good job on the streets.
And just a quick, Les McDonald's got a quick update on our weather that we're thinking we may experience in the next 24 hours.
Mayor Lambert, we have an interesting forecast ahead of us for the next 24 to 36 hours. National Weather Service is anticipating that we will see a rise in temperature in the early hours of tomorrow. So by 3 a.m., possibly as high as 38 degrees with rain.
Ooh.
And then transitioning to a little bit cooler weather tomorrow during the day, so dropping back into the low 30s, which could transition back into freezing temperatures possibly, and then an increase in winds tomorrow throughout the day with high winds 30 to 40 miles per hour with gusts possibly to 50 later in the day. So it's a little odd, but as you know, those of you that have been here a while know, sometimes these conditions are the ones that can create some issues for us. When we see rain and warm temperatures on top of snow, accumulation like we have right now, then there's potential for maybe some localized flooding. And depending on what happens further up in the mountain, how warm it gets, there's some potential for maybe something more extensive coming off the mountain. We're hoping that's not the case. But we would ask that folks just kind of keep an eye on the street in front of their residences and their properties. If you see areas where there's water starting to accumulate and the snow is blocking access for that water to the catch basins on the street corner, please step out with your shovel if you can and try to clear a path to the catch basin so that water can get into the storm drain system and move on out. Don't really anticipate anything too major, but we'll just have to see how the weather goes. We have crews out there tonight that'll be dealing with the snow that's on the roadways. As it warms up, a lot of that snow that's still left on the roads will become slushy, and so they'll be working to remove as much of that as possible. We are fortunate in that a lot of the students are out of town. There's not as many people going to work in the morning hours, so it should be pretty light traffic through the night and in the early morning hours to allow those crews to do their thing. So just thought we should let folks know that could be an interesting day tomorrow.
Okay.
So do we know whether or not we will have a committee meeting on the 27th, committee meetings on the 27th?
I think the agendas will be reviewed this week.
We will
and-
talk about it tomorrow.
So you
Council
don't-
leadership, myself, and Jim will be talking about it, and we will let you guys know.
Okay, and
There's not a whole lot on the docket, but we really don't know until we take a look at it tomorrow.
and the council meeting for the 2nd will be on the 3rd?
It will be on Tuesday the 3rd, that's correct. Yep. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjournment, but before I do that, happy holidays, season's greetings, and a Merry Christmas to all. This is the last meeting for this year, folks.
Ho, ho, ho. Movie adjourned.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned, 8:10, folks. Thank you very much.